30 years ago, you started Saltmine. So what was your hope and dreams back in the 80s?
Well, I'd been involved in youth work for 10 years, trying to express to people how faith is relevant. And after 10 years of learning a lot, making huge mistakes, I really wanted to bring something together that could be the springboard for other young people to exercise their skills in ministry and actually explaining to their own generation how they could find faith.
Well, it's funny you say that, because obviously my first experience was a Reclamation Roadshow in the 80s, you know, Bishop Milner School in Dudley, and just meeting with young people from all other churches and just the denominations all in one room, you know. And I think I particularly remember the 1 minute testimony.
Oh, yes.
And having to stand up and just say why God was my friend and what it meant for me in 1 minute. But what was obviously you must have had a real vision for Reclamation Roadshow.
So I'd got a lot of contacts in Dudley and schools in Dudley, and decided that we would put an initiative together to draw young people and those who were born a little earlier from many churches in the Dudley area, bring them together once a month for praise and worship and for teaching and challenge.
And I think another link I had with Saltmine was obviously the holidays in the summer. It developed into Splashdown and Somersault.
And every summer we took on a boarding school, and for 4 weeks we packed the place with young people, and it was just amazing. Music, theatre, training, and then all the outdoor activities. We had fabulous food, etc. But it was very special for you, I seem to remember.
Yeah, St Anne's in Windermere was very special, because that's where I actually met my husband, Mark.
Yay.
He was on team. That was just so fantastic. Saltmine, you know, in the 80s and the 90s, that's quite different to what it was now. So can you tell us a bit about what was some of the highlights, I guess?
I think the highlight of the 80s was the Dirty Hands project. And out of a trip that Ian Coffey and myself did to India, we launched Dirty Hands. God uses people with clean hearts and dirty hands. 29 venues, 2,229 people responded. And never a month goes by that I don't find someone who will say, Milton Keynes 1986, Dirty Hands.
And obviously the bands were really significant as well, weren't they? You know, the music and the Saltmine bands, I remember them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were good.
Yeah.
Because we put a lot of emphasis on getting the music right.
Yeah.
Because if the music wasn't right, people wouldn't listen to the message.
No.
So the band was fundamental to the communication process, whether it was worship or performance songs. They always did a great job.
And obviously the birth of the theatre company as well in the 1980s, and we've kept going, you know, as a result of what David and the great team birthed, you know. But I guess in 2006 was the year that you didn't really retire, did you?
I set up the Flame Trust, which is a small organisation, a small charity, which is looking after the development of the work I was doing with schools and academies. And so it was a very natural transition period.
Then obviously Phil Collins took over. He got me on the board in 2009. And so what happened with me was when he moved on, I got sort of catapulted into being executive chair, just to assess really Saltmine and look at how we go forward. And as a board then we made the decision to advertise for a chief exec. And do you know, the interesting thing is, if I wouldn't have done that executive chair role, I'd have never have applied. And isn't God good that He prepares you? And
at the risk of making you blush again, I just think that was a divine appointment. I really do.
For us, very much from the ministry of the theatre company and the creative arts, we just really felt it was right to, really focus on the creative arts, and that's where the strapline faith motivated arts came from. That our faith motivates us to tell God's story, but it motivates us to tell other stories because we believe in the power of story. And just this year alone, we've been really privileged to partner with Chad and tell stories of domestic violence victims, and actually bring them to life to teach young people the dangers of toxic relationships.
Absolutely.
There is a sense where we've built on the history as well, and association and partnerships was very significant for you, wasn't it?
It was. I was blessed to work quite closely with Dr. Billy Graham, and one of my treasured moments is spending quality personal time with him. He was a great encouragement to me, and I remember saying to him, Mr. Graham, I will never ever be able to do what you do, and I'm aware of my own weaknesses and what I can't do. And he stopped me in my tracks and said, you need to be aware that your weakness is your strength, and God will change weakness into strength, and that's lived with me. And I think that's been a great hallmark of what Saltmine actually has always been about. In developing those partnerships, it's coming together so that people who may be weak in some areas, as they come together, are very strong as a team.
For me, I remember, I really believe that our strength was in our diversity, and so actually having diverse partners, as well as your sort of your theatre and education, your missional work with churches, that being a creative resource, but actually partnering with some great organisations. And as I look back, I think some of the early partnerships were with UCB. We did One Hope, which was telling the story. We partnered with Care for the Family, doing some sketches at their conference. We partnered with All for Arts. That was fascinating for me because we wanted to do a play for primary school children and all age about the importance of friendship and diversity and accepting and loving each other despite our differences. And then I think also, I think if somebody had to say what was your highlight of your partnership, I think one of them was with UCCF, University and Colleges Christian Fellowship. I remember, partnering with them to do a modern interpretation of the story of Luke and three witnesses and the story of John, Darkness Falls, and just wanting to open students' eyes to the relevance of God's story. What would you say was one of your, real sort of memorable challenges during your Saltmine years?
For me, I think that the main challenge in leadership is knowing when to actually apply the brakes, or when to put your foot on the accelerator, particularly in terms of individual gifting, but then being able to harness the diversity and the creativity and take it forward with one aim and with one purpose.
No, and I would agree with all that you've said.
Well, I lost my hair, but you're blessed you won't lose yours.
No, just going great. But I think one of my highlights, but challenges was the Passion Play last year.
Yes.
And I think
that was a huge project, Rachel.
I just, oh my goodness, had no idea, not just the fundraising side of it, but just the depth of needing to connect with the council, with Birmingham churches, with wanting a diversity of cast, and it was just huge. I mean, I would go as far to say 6 months of my working life was devoted to it. I think for me, the challenge is worth it when you know that you're partnering with God.
Of course.
Because you're not on your own. And I can honestly say there is no way we could have even done the Birmingham Passion Play without God holding our hands and guiding us. All our tours have been cancelled and the future is just so uncertain. But I always remember something that my mom says, that, our disappointments can be God's appointments.
Absolutely.
And actually the importance of looking at the next thing and the new thing that we can embrace in the midst of this, shut doors, as it were. And so for us, we are really getting out of the boat, and trying to walk on water.
Well, John Ortberg wrote a great book on that.
I know he did. And it was, with looking at doing live theatre with filming, much more than we've ever done before.
Yes.
And, we might not be able to take big sort of teams into schools, so we're looking at doing live theatre and then having a facilitator, and we've just felt mental health is on God's heart, and we're just looking at a new project addressing mental health within secondary schools. So we are just, I think what's hard is you can't have concrete vision for the future because of the uncertainties, so you have to have
But maybe that's God's design as we go forward.
Yeah.
We love certainty.
I know.
But actually, out of uncertainty comes creativity, and that's what you're brilliant at.
It does. Do you feel proud of what you invested in and what you started?
Why are you sitting in my garden? I'm sorry about the lack of cream teas and all the rest of it. Of course I do. Of course I do. To see what you and the team are now doing. You're doing it much better. The skill set that you've put around you is far stronger than I ever had. It's a new generation. It's a new means of communicating, and I love it.
As I look to the future, there is uncertainty, but I do have faith that God wants us to do a new thing, and the real exciting thing is that sense of calling to tell the story of God's Son, and we're very, very excited at the moment because we've got a new script which we've rewritten from Rob Lacey's script, The Liberator, and we've just got funding this week, so we are going to be producing The Liberator.
Brilliant.
And telling God's story, and the Passion Play as well. Listen, Dave, it's been so lovely to speak with you in your lovely garden and just to reminisce a little bit about the last 40 years and God's goodness, and giving thanks for all the staff. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of people,
Absolutely.
aren't we, that have been
Absolutely.
involved in Saltmine, that have made Saltmine what it is, and that God has used in an amazing way.
Well, Rachel, thanks for being here, and thanks for being so kind, and happy birthday.
Yeah, happy 40th birthday.